All right, I'm just starting the recording now, and I'm very excited for our very first workshop for the Mountain Mute section. I'm going to introduce our speaker today, but before we get started, for those who have just logged in, I have put the link to the course in the chat, and I'll be turning off the chat feature. What we ask is that you use the chat within the moodle.mountainmute.com course section. You can look at the very top and you can see the chat box, so we can connect to each other through there. And you can also access more information. I know Tracy's also put the link to the slides in the chat, but once again, we'll be closing the chat as we move forward. So it's my incredible pleasure to introduce Tracy. Tracy taught kindergarten for 12 years and was one of the first one-to-one iPad classrooms had in Billings Public Schools. For the past 5 years, she has helped teachers and students integrate technology as a technology integration specialist for K-3. So Tracy is an Apple Distinguished Educator, PBS Kids Early Learning Champion, and Seesaw Certified Educator. She loves helping teachers and students use meaningful media and technology to learn, create, to share, and reflect. And she's excited to be attending her first Mute and to learn to work with and from all of you. So please help me welcome Tracy, and I'm just going to transfer the host feature to her, and we look forward to this session.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Oh, I think I have to wait to be a host first before I can share my screen. We're figuring it out.
And you are officially the host.
Perfect. All right. All right. Does everyone see my screen now? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, awesome. Well, good morning. I'm really excited. This is my first Mountain Moot, and all of my friends who this is their first Mountain Moot are like, oh, well, we're going to attend a session and kind of see how things work, you know, because we're all a little nervous. And I said, well, I can't do that. I'm first thing on Wednesday morning. So I'm learning along with you. For those of you who are new to the Moot and new to utilizing Moodle, I'm here learning right along with you. So happy to have, do you say, is your name Solange, or how do you pronounce it?
Solange.
Okay, Solange. So happy to have you with us, helping us with this session today. So thank you so much. So to clarify the chat in the Moodle, I'm going to have you show us. I'm going to go to the course. So this is our course page. Is this where the chat is, Solange?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then you can search participants right in there.
Okay, perfect. So for everyone, if you can see my screen, I went back into I'm logged into the course page for this session in Moodle, and then in that top right corner, there's that little kind of comment bubble, and so we can use that for the chats this morning. All right, so my name is Tracy Piltz. I recognize a lot of your names, so I know lots of you, which is awesome. For those of you who don't know, I am a former kindergarten teacher. I have worked for Billings Public Schools for the past 5 years as a tech integration specialist. I work mostly with kindergarten through 3rd grade students and teachers, just kind of helping them utilize technology and meaningful media in their classrooms. For those of you who know me, you know that probably my favorite technology tool to use is Seesaw. And so I'm super excited to be able to spend the morning with you today, just kind of sharing about Seesaw. And again, the session was intended for folks who are at least familiar with Seesaw and have a basic understanding of Seesaw. And again, I recognize a lot of your names, so I think that that's true for a lot of our participants. But as the session progresses, if you do have questions, you need me to back up a little bit and clarify anything, please unmute yourself and just kind of let me know, or put it in the chat and Solange can stop me and just kind of ask to clarify some things. So norms, you guys are already on this, you know, just mute yourself when you're not talking, but please, if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. I get talking and, you know, I'm looking at my slides and on Seesaw, and I don't always check the chat box all the time. So unmute yourself, ask a question. There are a few times that I'll ask something that I'd love for you to discuss and contribute to the discussion. So feel free to unmute yourself or use that chat box in Moodle. I don't know if any of you are on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. And so if you want to share any of your learning today, sorry, that one GP Summit isn't updated, but you can always tag Tracy Piltz and Seesaw. For those of you who are on Twitter, Seesaw is one of my, just going to their page, and I don't even think you have to have a Twitter account. You can just sort of go to their page on Twitter without logging in, but they retweet and share so many ideas that teachers have for using Seesaw in their classrooms. It's one of my favorite places to go for kind of ideas and inspiration for using Seesaw. So I wasn't sure, again, I assumed everyone had sort of a basic knowledge of Seesaw, but I'm going to go ahead and just play this very quick video, just sort of a what is Seesaw introduction video. This is one, it's on Seesaw's YouTube channel, and you could show to your students as well.
Hi, and welcome to Seesaw. We are so glad you are here today. Did you know that with just a tablet or laptop and Seesaw, you can do all kinds of things? Cool, huh? Seesaw helps you show all the things you know and are learning. You could draw a picture. Meow. You could take a photo and mark it up. I'm circling an important fact in the book I am reading. And you can even record yourself reading or talking about something. As you can see here, 2 + 4 = 6. And there is so much more. We can't wait to show you all the neat tools and things you can do with Seesaw. So get ready to have all the fun and show what you know here at Seesaw.
Hold on one moment. I think my neighbor is at my door. I need like a sign for the door or something. I am so sorry. I'm going to play you another video. Hold on one moment.
Can you show this, Casey?
Yeah, hold on, I can hear you. Okay, so obviously the first one would be more for younger students. The second one was one that I created for older students as an introduction to Seesaw. So this is part of the joy of working from home, but apparently they're beginning road work out on my street and I have to go move my car. So here's what I would love for you to do. I was going to ask this question in a moment. Maybe I'll just kind of sneak to this part right now. But how has Seesaw changed your teaching? And I'd really love if you could, this might be a great chance to practice that little chat box there. If you could go ahead and utilize the chat box in Moodle to share your answer to this question, how has Seesaw changed your teaching? If you haven't used it quite yet, maybe just share sort of what you know about Seesaw and how you're thinking about utilizing it. So again, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be gone for hopefully usually just a couple of minutes, but if you could spend that time in the chat box, that would be amazing. And there's your question, and I will be right back.
No problem. Things like this always seem to happen as soon as you push, let's start or into these spaces. So a couple of things to clarify. I believe you can chat to everyone within this Zoom session. So if you want to send a message to everyone, you can post in the chat. You can also post within the Moodle course itself. It's just the private chat that was disabled. So reaching out to somebody individually through the Zoom chat. So either place works really well. I've put the link to the home course, to the home moodle.mountainmoot.com. And I'll also include right now the link to the course itself.
Hi, Solange.
Hi.
I didn't want to type because it's a lot, but I just wanted to share with the group. So I teach at Montana City, and we're a K-8 school. And I did when we did a PIR day, I went to Seesaw, and I remember sitting there because I teach middle school art. And I was like, how would I ever use this? And it's actually become super important in my room. It's such a good communication tool with my parents because for those of you who work with middle school students, a lot of times the art projects don't make it home, unfortunately. So this was such a great way for me to I started making it kind of a requirement where I would take pictures of the projects, and the parents would respond like their thoughts, what they thought of them. And it was a good way for me to even just, this is where we started, this is the middle, this is the end. And it really became an incredible, I don't know what I would do without it, honestly, at this point, but it's an incredible tool. I mean, parents will even just say, hey, my student's not going to make it there today. But really with the whole art project, just sharing the projects with the students, it really was just such a K-1 app that was used in our school. And I've really helped to bring it to the middle school forefront as a way to just share projects and ideas with parents and kids alike. So that was my experience with it so far.
Well, that's amazing. I know Seesaw is new to me, so this is wonderful. Does anyone else have any other ways that they've used it?
My grade level at my school, I team teach with 3 other teachers, and we used it for distance learning in the past because we were able to do activities. And like Tracy showed in the video, we were able to send back drafts. Sorry, that's my 1-year-old. We were able to send back drafts of work that wasn't finished, as well as leave comments with voice, as well as written comments, which was really nice.
That's excellent. I can see some other comments in the chat as well.
I have a question about the chat. So I can see people's faces and I can see her screen, but I cannot see a chat bar. So where should I be? What am I doing wrong? I'm sorry.
No, down at the very bottom, there are little icons, and one is a chat icon.
I'm not getting a bottom. Everybody came up at like your strip, like your gallery view at the top, and then behind is just the Zoom logo. There's I have to toggle between 2 screens to see her shared screen. Should I exit and come back in?
Or at view options on the top, are you able to put side-by-side mode so that you see the screen as well as the participants?
No. I have to talk. I can just see the talking. I can see one person. I can do that gallery view, or there's a box with a lighter box in it where I can switch between her presentation or the people, somebody talking.
Okay, so a couple of different things within Zoom itself. At the very top, I know on mine I'm using a PC, there's a drop-down menu, so you can click View Options, and then you can put side-by-side, or you can also unselect or select that. The other place is on the top right, where you have the speaker view, or you can go gallery view, and then when you select gallery view, you see all of the speakers all at once. If you have the speaker view on, whoever is speaking has the biggest square within the Zoom meeting place. At the very bottom of the Zoom screen, you have your mute to turn off and on for your mute selection, your stop and start video. And then along the bottom, you see the participants, chat, and reactions. Does anyone else see that?
I don't.
If somebody could unmute. And let me,
Might I suggest one, this is Marilyn, could I suggest one possibility is to take your mouse and hover down at the bottom of the screen, just kind of roll around down there, click in one of the screens, and it may be that the icons that look like a camera and a microphone will kind of appear for you. Sometimes they disappear when you're clicking on the screen. Click kind of down towards the bottom, and then for the chat, there's probably little dots. And if you click on the little dots, then that'll bring up the other options like the chat piece.
thank you, Marilyn.
Yeah, I hope that maybe helps.
All right, I'm back. Thank you, Solange, for kind of working through Zoom and the chat box and everything. So yeah, apparently they're doing a little road work, you know, like what if I was at home? Would they just do the road around my car? I have no idea. Anyway, the joys of working from home. I see that a few of you kind of popped some things into the Zoom chat, which is great. So a few of us are sort of new to Seesaw. So I'm kind of like going right into activities, which I don't necessarily do usually on a basics Seesaw. So I want to draw your attention kind of back here on this page that I sort of hastily played video on. There is a link, and this will take you to some really great getting started resources. If you go to web.seesaw.me, this takes you to a website where you'll be able to link to their training and PD. They have tons of resources on there for getting started. I would also recommend, if you're on social media, there are some really great groups. I'm not a huge Facebook person, but there's a ton of Seesaw Facebook groups, like for grade levels. And I think those can be really helpful. Like there's a Seesaw for kindergarten teachers, and then it's just teachers on there who are either using Seesaw or new to Seesaw, asking questions and exchanging ideas. And then of course, I'm always available to help you get started and answer questions. I will mention that there's a free version of Seesaw and then a paid version of Seesaw. So as I'm showing things today, I'll try to reference what's available in free and what's sort of a premium feature. And then if you have questions, I know a few of you had said, you know, I'm new to Seesaw, I might be using it. If you don't know if you're going to be using free or paid and have questions about the difference, please stop me and let me know so that I can clarify any of that for you. Somebody asked in here, is there a particular age group that it's designed for? It really is for all age groups. When you start seeing the tools and the features, I think it was just last week, it feels like a long time ago, but I did another workshop just for BPS teachers, and there were a few intermediate teachers, like 4th and 5th grade teachers on there that I think were just kind of there to learn more. And after seeing what Seesaw did and looking up the tools, they really made those connections for how it would work in their classrooms, like the things that they know that they'd be able to take advantage of. Candace is asking, does the Billings School District offer the paid version? In BPS, our middle schools don't have the paid version. All of our elementary schools, as of, we had one holdout and they just purchased it like a week ago, but all of our elementary schools have the paid version. The caveat there is that about half of them bought it for the whole building K-5. Some bought it for particular grade levels. So if you are like a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade teacher in an elementary school and you're not certain if your school has the paid version, shoot me an email and I can look and let you know if you will have access to the paid version or not. Okay, I'm gonna keep going, but I'll continue to check this chat, and I know Solange is checking this as well. So sort of my intent for today, hold on, now I think I'm on the Zoom, there we go. These are sort of the 4 big, I guess, ideas or areas that I'm hoping to accomplish today. I want to investigate the activity library, spend some time creating. So I mentioned that we're going to kind of dive right into activities. Activities is a really unique feature in Seesaw, where not only is Seesaw a digital portfolio where students can be showcasing and sharing their work, but there's also space in there for teachers to create these activities or utilize a bank of activities already created. So I can actually like push out assignments with directions and examples and that type of thing to my students. I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about how to share and organize in Seesaw, and then how to utilize Seesaw for feedback and reflection. My plan for the day, and we'll kind of just have to keep our eye on the clock because 3 hours is a long time to just sort of be sitting here. I'm hoping to get through a chunk of this material and then give you a little bit of time to, you know, get up, take a break, move around, do a little bit of investigating in your own Seesaw. There are some new updates that were just pushed out and released yesterday, which I'm super excited for you to have some time to play with. And then we'll kind of reconvene and finish up. So I am hoping to give you a chunk of time where you can just sort of work independently and all remain connected through the Zoom, so that if you have questions, you can ask me questions as you work. That also might be a great time for those of you who are brand new to Seesaw. If you have questions while others are working on their activities, that might be a great time to answer some of those questions. So just kind of keep that time frame in mind. Okay, so we already sort of reflected. So a lot of people just kind of wrote a little bit new to Seesaw. Did anybody want to share how Seesaw has changed their teaching? And you can unmute and share out any thoughts or ideas on that.
Tracy?
Yeah.
Hey, I use Seesaw a lot, as you know, in the classroom this year. I went from muddling through it to the, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing, so please help me, to I feel really comfortable with it. Especially during distance learning, it was very helpful. And I'm sure you'll get into this, but the way that you can track the kiddos and their assignments and send them back, you know, notify parents to say, hey, Johnny is, you know, he's turning it in, but did you really look at his answers? Are you really aware of what he's doing? You know, it has helped so much. And it also helped, in my opinion, to keep that connection. You know, we Zoomed in the classroom, but I was also able to do voice recordings instead of just typing in on one of their papers, hey, good job. You know, I was able to do the voice recording and great job, buddy. I'm so proud of you. Keep up the good work. So then at least they heard my voice more than the few times a week we'd pop on as first graders. That's why it was only a few times a week for that affirmation. So.
Absolutely. Those are such great thoughts. I loved a couple of things you said. She said she started muddling through, and honestly, I think that's the best way to learn. I'm so happy you're here to get some information, but you're going to hear a ton of things today and you're not going to remember it all. So really the best thing, like Darby said, just sort of diving in and muddling through, not being afraid to give it a try, to click around. You're not going to break anything. I really, really love that. And then the other thing you touched on is, you know, Darby talked a lot about using it for distance learning and remote learning. And that's what I'm hoping you'll take from today, is that this is a tool that works fantastic in the classroom. You know, to be able to kind of use a little bit of blended learning where you have students, you could push out an activity where they could be listening to your voice, you know, watching a video, seeing an example and working independently while you have a small group pulled back at your table, or they could be using it at a center to complete a center activity. activity, but it's also going to work really well if you're not in the classroom too. It's a way of kind of cloning yourself, right? I could, like Darby said, I can record my voice. I know when my daughter's teacher would leave her a voice comment, and literally all it was like, great job. I mean, it was just through the moon that she got to actually hear her teacher's voice. So using that audio piece, you know, recording yourself in a video to do a quick mini lesson or explain. We do ST math here in Billings, and my daughter was stuck on ST math. And so I jumped in to help, and I also was completely stuck on ST math. And so we sent a Seesaw message to her teacher, and then she could send us like a little video back showing us kind of some steps for, you know, attacking that problem. So I really think it's kind of a way of cloning yourself and connecting with your kids when you're not in the classroom, but you can also sort of clone yourself and use it as a real tool when you're in the classroom as well. So I'm hoping that you'll see those connections.
Another thing I really like about it, oops, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I wanted to jump in as a parent as well. I spoke earlier, Tracy, about how I've used it as a middle school art teacher. I'm a specialist at my school. So during all this, I also am the PE teacher. I posted videos on Seesaw, like workouts for the kids to do. So that was a good distance learning thing. But as a parent, Darby, one of the first grade teachers, so she'll do stuff where she puts like maybe say a body system up on a wall, and then she records, and then my son, you know, he'll point. It's kind of how she does a live test with them, you know, well, where is this bone, or what does this muscle do? And then she videos it. So as a parent, you know, I'm seeing my child and what he's doing, and it's not just a paper pencil test. So just on that side of it, as a parent, I can say like all the things Darby was saying, the kids just love it. It's not just, you know, again, the paper pencil and sign this and return it. So you can really then interact with your child when they come home and say, hey, I saw this, like, can we go through this again? It was really neat. So on the parent side of it, it really is an incredible tool. I just wanted to share that part too.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that. And I think that's you know, again, for those of you new to Seesaw, that parent piece is huge. So thanks for sharing that. But you know, parents can connect to their students' journal. They only see their child's work. And then there's also a feature in there that I think works kind of like Remind, where you can be sending them messages and announcements and that type of thing. And yeah, from the parent side, especially when our kids are in their buildings and you don't get to see everything, a teacher here had a sign on her door that said like, the best learning doesn't come home in a backpack, which is so true, right? When whether you're middle school, you know, doing art and music and experiments and that type of thing, or you're, you know, third grade or kindergarten, I mean, the best learning that you're doing isn't a worksheet that gets sent home. It's all of those sort of hands-on things that are happening in your classroom throughout the day. And so to be able to document that and share that with parents, I think is huge. And then I think the reverse of that is huge when our kids are distance learning. As a teacher, I want to see all of those things that they're doing from home. And so for them to be able to document their home learning, taking pictures, or just, you know, sending a note like, hi, I missed you, those kinds of things. I mean, it keeps that line of communication open the other direction when they're not with us too.
I've had that a few times. Like I had to go somewhere for my kids, or if I was homesick, I would find that my kiddos would get onto Seesaw. I'm going to read you a story today. I hope you feel better, you know, and it's just cute because it's a great way to interact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. I told you I'm new to the Moot. I'm trying to keep notes so I can give Moot coin, whatever that means, but it seems awesome. So I'm going to try to keep track of those of you who are sharing and interacting, and I'm trying to give Moot coin. So we'll see how that goes, friends. So what makes these activities effective? And if you can look at the screen, these are also clickable, and it just kind of takes you out to that activity. But if you sort of look at the Seesaw activity and take a moment, what about this activity do you think would make it an effective activity? And again, unmute or put it in the chat box, whichever you're more comfortable with. Zoom wait time is more awkward than even regular wait time, don't you think?
Yes, I definitely think that. I think that the kids would like it because there's multiple things they get to do. They get to take a picture. They get to record themselves. And anytime a kid can talk and see themselves, they tend to be totally engaged. And so like just looking down that list of things, I love that you put the icons in there because, you know, that's visual for me. And so then I assume everybody else loves that too. But I think that would make it very engaging. And you also kind of, if you look on the side, there's some built-in spiraling and scaffolding in place too. So that's kind of nice.
Great, thank you, Sandra. So what I love about this are a lot of the things that Sandra mentioned. There are so many ways to share, for the student to share what they know or what they learned. We'll look at how to add those little icons, I think making it visual. And this one is a mix of, you can see some of these are just emojis, and then some of them are those icons that can be sort of embedded in your Seesaw directions. But I love that. What else do you notice? Like, what do you think happens when I hit that play button?
I know when you hit that play button, it does the recording and it tells the kids what's going on, which was super helpful in kindergarten, especially during distance learning, because many of them cannot read what we're writing. They can look at the icons, but they can't read what's going on. So the verbal directions were very helpful.
Tracy,
yeah.
I think also being able to hear them, as others have mentioned, it is just incredible when you're doing that distance learning to be able to hear the progress or the lack thereof, but being able for them to hear themselves also, and for the parent to be able to hear it, I think that's very powerful. That's one of the most powerful things with being able to use the Seesaw in a lower grade.
I completely agree. I think the camera and the microphone tool on our devices are the most powerful tools, and Seesaw gives us a really great way to leverage those tools. But to be able to document what they're thinking and learning and creating by taking pictures and then just adding their voice, I think is incredibly helpful. I don't know how many times I've heard from a teacher, you know, they were turning in all this work. I thought they knew what they were doing, right? Because you're just getting a worksheet back or checking their math journal or whatever. But when you have them maybe complete that same problem on Seesaw and you're having them kind of explain their thinking, you might notice like some mistakes or some holes and that kind of thing. And so again, I think, you know, it helps you clone yourself because you don't have the time to go and have those conversations with every one of your students as they're working, but this allows you to take that time with them a little bit later. So many great thoughts there. This is kind of along those same lines, but what makes for that transformational learning experience? And I think it's a lot of what you've already spoken about, those experiences where kids are engaged, what makes them so engaging? Thoughts on that? Anything new that we haven't mentioned yet? Someone up in the chat box wrote a mix of learning strategies, and I think that fits really well here. When you look at the tools available to students in Seesaw, I think that choice is incredibly engaging to them. I could draw a picture, or I could take a picture, or I could type it if I want to, or I could use the microphone. I think that choice is incredibly engaging. And again, this allows us to give them those hands-on things where they're making and doing and creating, but then can document it using this tool. So some things that to talk about or think about as you are creating those activities, or just searching the activity library for something you want to use. You want to look for an activity that has a real clear objective. Again, it's sort of like searching teachers pay teachers and just looking for something cute, right? You don't want to just find something cute in the activity library. You want to make sure that it actually is going to fulfill an objective. And if you don't find anything, then this is where you can create your own. And that's what hopefully we'll have some time to spend on today is digging into making our own. Those step-by-step text and audio directions. So again, really clearly stating what you want them to do, incorporating those icons so it's really visual, and then adding your voice to that. When students complete an activity, it stays sort of at the top. It always says view instructions at the top. So these pieces here, they'll always be able to click on view instructions and come back and see this or re-listen to what you've asked them to do. And so I think that's a huge piece of the activity feature. Being able to add in examples and resources in that multimedia section. So again, I can create a mini lesson. I could do a video. I could link to a YouTube video. I could do a read aloud. I could link a document that I want them to read. Maybe I just do an example of something that I want them to do. I can put all of that into that multimedia section so that they have those supports there in place before they go to do whatever activity it is that I ask them to do. And again, I think that's just as important in the classes out, because in the class, I want them working independently too, right? I'm not using this because then I want to have to walk around and make sure they're all doing, you know, answering questions and making sure they're doing what I want them to do. I want them doing this so that I could be working with a small group. And same as at home. Just because they're at home doesn't mean they have a parent sitting there with them the whole time helping them with this. And so as much support and help we can give so that they can be independent, I think is really important. Like you talked about, the exploration, the hands-on tools, and then we'll talk more about this later, but adding in that layer of reflection. So I really want you to think about that piece and how you might add, maybe you've been doing activities, but you're not adding that piece in. So how can we add that layer of reflection in? We know this, but students learn best when they're actively engaged in constructing and reflecting on their learning. And Seesaw is, again, just a fantastic tool for giving them those opportunities. So our objective today, kind of what we're hoping to accomplish is, you know, teachers use Seesaw activities to create those transformational learning experiences. So we want to support that engagement, the agency, you know, that they have that choice and that independence, and then hopefully building in that reflection piece for all students. Before I dive into the activity library in Seesaw, I just kind of want to check back into the chat box. Someone asked a great question, I think it was Candace, just about the privacy piece in Seesaw. And so I wanted to address that real quickly. So like I mentioned before, if you have a family member connected, so like I'm connected to my daughter's journal. When I log into my family app, I only see my daughter's work. I don't see her classmates' work. I only see her work. In the classroom, most usually the default setting is so that all of their classmates can see one another's work. So when Sloan is at Broadwater in her 3rd grade classroom and she's posting to Seesaw, she can see all of her classmates' work and they can see all of her work. There is a setting, and I'm going to just kind of pop over to my account here. When I'm in a Seesaw class, this little wrench up in the right-hand corner are your class settings. And so it's good to know that's there, and just sort of all the things that you actually can moderate and have control over. You can toggle this so that students cannot see each other's work. It's not my favorite because I really think a huge benefit of Seesaw is that they're actually sharing with their classmates and they're publishing to an authentic audience. And I think that's part of the reason they really love it and are so motivated when using it. However, if it's a concern of yours, that can be toggled off. When they're at home, there's a couple of things I would recommend, because when they're at home, you run into some privacy issues. So if it's set so that they can see each other's work, but they're home learning, and they're logging in like with their normal QR code or whatever up here, what happens is, so say Sloan is sitting here doing her Seesaw work and I'm kind of hovering over her looking, I could in theory view all of her classmates' work, right? And so there's some privacy issues there. So Seesaw, our Billings Public Schools has, like we'd mentioned before, Seesaw for Schools. We're able to turn on a certain setting so that by default, when students are at home, they cannot see each other's work. So if you're in Billings Public Schools and you're using Seesaw for Schools, they cannot see each other's work from home. They also created these new home learning codes. So if you're using free Seesaw and you want students to access it from home, you would want to sign them up with these student home learning codes because of the privacy issues. Again, they have to sign in as themselves. They don't have a choice of choosing a name from a list. It's unique to them, and they cannot see each other's work. So a couple of things to think about with the privacy. There is not a way to turn it off for some activities and others. So I can't really say like, okay, I want you to see this thing, but I don't want you to see this other thing. A workaround for that, if you have the premium, so like Seesaw for Schools, is one of the folders that you have in your premium version is this private folder. And when I put something in a private folder, only teachers can see it. So if there is something that maybe they did an assessment, I don't want all of their classmates to see it, I could put that into a private folder and they wouldn't be able to see it. Maybe they posted something naughty and I don't want to delete it because it's good documentation, but I obviously don't want to post it either. I can put that into that private folder. So again, that's sort of a workaround for making things only visible to the teacher, but it's only available if you have the paid version of Seesaw. Okay, so the Seesaw Activity Library. When you want to access the activity library, you can get there by clicking on that plus, the green plus sign, and then choosing Assign Activity. And that will take you directly to your activity library. Now there are 3 tabs in the activity library if you're using paid or Seesaw for Schools. If you have free Seesaw, you're only going to see 2 tabs. So you're going to see your library, which is where anything that you save, like you found something in the community library and you love it, you can save it to your library, or anything that you create yourself is going to save to your library. The community library is a space where teacher ambassadors have created activities and shared to the community library so that you can access them and use them for free. And we'll take a look at that in a second. The school and district library, if you're using Seesaw for Schools, is pretty fantastic because it's just a library from, so say just Billings Public Schools. Anything that teachers here in BPS create can be shared to that library, and then anyone in our district with access to Seesaw for Schools can access those activities. We were using it a little bit, and then when we went distance learning, I mean, this kind of blew through the roof, and it was amazing because again, you know, maybe I've got a teacher over here at Boulder making something awesome and a teacher over here at Eagle Cliffs making something awesome, and they're like basically making the same thing but don't know it. Now we pop that into the school and district library, so it's shared with everyone in our district. Our curriculum coaches really did an awesome job of going through and taking Go Math and Wonders activities and then putting those into that district library so that anyone in our district could access those. So that is a really fantastic tool if you're using Seesaw for Schools to connect to that library and access what's there. So again, if you search the community library and you find something that you like, so I found a perfect activity, I want to use it with my first graders. If I click that little heart, I guess first I'll just say you could just assign it. So you could click on assign, you could push it out to your students. If you really like it and you want to save it, you would click on that little heart to save it to your library. The difference would be if you just assign it, then like next month or next year, if you wanted to send that same activity, you'd have to go back and search for it again. If it's in your library, you'd be able to go to your library and find it quickly. You can also modify activities. So let's say you find an activity in the library and you really like it, but there's a few things that you'd like to change about it. Sometimes, like this one is fantastic because it already has such rich, well thought out instructions. Sometimes I find a concept that I really like, but the instructions are like just a tiny little bit and they haven't used the icons, and I want to add a little bit more to that. Sometimes teachers like deleting the audio instructions and then re-recording with their own voice so that their kids hear their voice. So you can modify the activity by clicking those three dots at the bottom of the activity and then choosing copy and edit. So this it goes right into your activity library. It makes a copy that you can make edits on and change it to suit the needs of your classroom. When you push out and assign an activity for your students, it shows up. So this is sort of a student, what the students would see. It would show up under the activities tab, and then they just choose that big green button there that says add response, and that's how they respond to the activity. So just kind of a recap on that. Students can contribute to their Seesaw journal by just clicking plus, and they wouldn't see this screen. It would just take them right here. So they have access to all of the Seesaw tools. They can add a photo, they could draw, they could do the video. This piece I think is really big. You'll notice that they can really easily upload files that they've created somewhere else, and you'll notice this little Google Drive icon here. If you're using Google, like the G Suite for Education, or you're using Google Classroom, Seesaw works really well with that. So let's say, here's an example from my daughter. They did a research project. They all had to pick an animal, and they did a slide. They created Google Slides telling about what they learned about the animal. It was a pretty involved project. It took, longer than a month. So when she was all done, and they had done it all in Google, when she was all done, she can't share that, right? She can't share it really with her classmates. I couldn't see it as a parent. And so Seesaw is then a space where she could publish that, so she can easily share it with her classmates. She could share it with her family, and then we can add those extra tools in Seesaw. So what she was able to do is grab from her Google Drive, upload the slides, and then use the microphone in Seesaw to basically read and present her slides. She could kind of tag through all of her slides and read them to me and then post them. And so it's a great place to showcase and share, and then also be able to add those tools, to be able to grab the pen and annotate, to be able to use the microphone on top. It makes it really easy to add those extra elements to things that you've created in Google. So, sorry, that was an aside, but these are the things that students can do. So they can just post there. If I want to assign an activity, what I like about assigning an activity is, again, I can give them those really explicit instructions. I'm not just saying, go click the add button and draw a picture of blah, blah, blah. I could actually, give them those instructions, use the icons, maybe put an example in there. So again, it's helping them be a little bit more independent. I also like how I can view it a little bit more easily. I'm not scrolling through that big long journal feed. I could come here. So I want to see everybody's memory books. I could come to this activity. I can click that little gray bar, and I get a screen that shows me all of my students. I could look here and see if there's something I need to review, if there's something they're still working on, and then I can view and see who's finished. Office 365, you can upload anything that you've created. So when you upload it, again, it doesn't have the Microsoft, sorry, I'm on the wrong button, but you could save it to your computer and then upload as probably as a PDF, but then they can still use all those tools on it. So they could use the pen and annotate, they could use the microphone. So yep, pretty much anything you could save to your computer or your iPad, depending on what device you're using, you can upload to Seesaw. Candace, you can assign different activities to each student. So I'm going to show you that. And if I forget, please remind me. But when you go to assign, you can pick the students that you want to assign the activity to. So that was the activity library. I will kind of go into the actual, let's just for a minute take a peek at the actual library. So again, plus, assign activity. When I go to the actual activity library, it is searchable. It's going to default to whatever grade level you have chosen. Oh, I was afraid this was going to happen. Look, spinning, spinning, spinning. It'll default to your grade level. You can change your grade level. You can search by subject. You can put in a keyword. And then again, once you find something, you could click on assign and just post that right out to your class, or you can put a little heart on it and you can save that to your library. So to create your own activity, questions about that, go ahead and pop them in the chat or unmute before I move to creating your own activity. Okay, I'm trying to go fast because I talk a lot and I get really off. Like I wanted to give you some time at 9:30 and that gives us 10 minutes. So we might have to push that a little bit back. So to search, nope, to search in the activity, well, okay, yes. It's real weird. So the question in the chat is, to search the library, do you hit assign first? Yes, and that doesn't make any sense to me. So there's two ways you can get to the activity library. Good question. If you're in your journal, you could click on that plus sign, and then to get to it, you say assign activity, even though you're really just maybe searching for an activity. You can also, in the activities tab, but it's sometimes hiding down here, a little button comes up that says browse activity library, and you can also click that browse activity library button and you can get to the library that way. But yeah, it is a little bit confusing because you click add and assign activity even if really you're just searching. Yes, Alicia, you do have to be connected to the, shut that door, Sloan. You do have to be connected to the Seesaw for Schools in order to see the district activity library. If you're not, depending on what school you are, we might be able to get you added on there, even though your principal didn't connect you. When we purchase it, they build some overage in, and so I can typically add a few classes per school without it affecting what they've purchased for. But you do have to be connected in order to see the district. Good questions. So when you're ready to create your own activity, you have to be in your library, and then you'll see just that plus sign there where it says create new activity. You can click on that. It's going to open up a screen that looks like this. Here's where you would put in your title, your step-by-step directions so that you can tell students exactly what you want them to do. You can use, so this example here has a little bit of both. You'll see where they used emojis for some visuals. If I'm making an activity I want emojis, sometimes I'll just make it right on my iPad because it's easy to get your emoji keyboard on an iPad. I can do all of this creating from the class Seesaw app if I'm signed in as a teacher. On my computer, I use this extension. I'm in Chrome and I use a Chrome extension called Emoji Keyboard for Joy Pixels. And I'm not saying that's the best one or anything, it's just the one that I've used. And so it allows me to grab an emoji and then just insert it here. There's other ways to do that too if you want an emoji in those directions. And then you'll notice that there's also some just sort of like code in there. So it says like colon, add colon. That's the little code for getting those visual directions in there. And I have those directions listed here, those little icon shortcuts. And so you don't have to actually memorize all of those. But if you want, say, the microphone picture to show up in your directions, you just have to know the text shortcut, the colon, mic, colon. We'll put that into your activity. And so what I would do, this is a clickable slide here. So when you click on it, it's going to take you to the Seesaw page that lists these icon shortcuts. I just bookmarked that page so that I can easily reference back to it as I'm creating my activities, and know that I can just kind of double check and see what those different icons are. I love the icon shortcuts too. So we talked about this a little bit, but when you're back in your activity creating it, I really think it's powerful to utilize that multimedia instructions or example piece, so that you can have again, a video of yourself explaining something. You can have a picture maybe of something that you want the kids to look at and then reflect on that, or you could have an example of what exactly you want them to do. So I think that piece can be really powerful, again, in that giving them agency and allowing them to work independently because you've put so many supports in there. You can only add one. So when I go to create an activity and I click on that multimedia instructions or example, I can only add one. So I see all of the Seesaw tools will come up, but I can't add a video and a document. I can only add one link in those areas. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create activity and pretend I'm going to add an example. You'll see that all my tools come up, but I can only add one thing. However, we're going to look at the new creative tools, and that's going to allow you some more flexibility in that area, which I'm super excited about. So some things that you might add into that example piece, again, an example, maybe a video or an article that you want them to watch or read, a demo video, and then any other materials that might support their completion of that particular activity. One thing that I think is super powerful is when I go into the drawing tool here in Seesaw, the microphone tool that you'll see over here is not just recording my voice, it's actually making a screencast. So it's going to record what I'm doing as well as what I'm saying. And so I could click on this microphone and I could say start recording, and I could be doing a little demo for my students. So we're going to pretend I'm showing maybe I'm even doing, my sister did a bunch that I thought were awesome where she was doing a directed draw. So she was going through and showing, I think she did like the pigeon or whatever. So she was talking and saying, okay, first you're going to draw a circle. And then she was just sort of walking them through the whole process of her directed drawing. So I'm going to stop there because she's a much better artist than I am. When I say done, you'll notice that now this made it into a video. So again, this could be a screencast example of what I want my students to do that I put in that multimedia example section. So they can watch me solve a math problem or just demonstrate whatever it is that I'm asking them to do or complete. So I think that's super helpful. There are some new tools, and honestly, they were just released yesterday, so I'm really excited that you guys will have a chance to play with these. I'm kind of pointing out that now you have an option of adding video right onto the drawing slide. So again, when I say you can only do one thing in your example, you could go to your drawing template and you could add a video in there plus other things. So you could now kind of utilize that drawing template as a space to do multiple things. So you can add a video that will show right on that slide. That's huge. And then the other thing that is new is adding links right onto your Seesaw slide. So again, you used to not be able to link right on the Seesaw slide. This is going to open up some huge possibilities, I think, This is an example that I played with. A ton of people are making those virtual classrooms or Bitmoji classrooms. So I made a really simple version of this just right inside of Seesaw, where I could upload all of the elements, and then I could add links. And so different things are, you know, my students would be able to click on this, and then they would just click on the links, and it would take them to, you know, a reading of the story or a math website that I want them to go to. And so now I can do all of that right inside of Seesaw. In my activity, and I will take you through a demo of that in just a second, but then also in my activity, if I want my students to respond in a particular way, I can then also add a template for them in there. This is where a lot of people will add, you know, maybe they had a worksheet, they want to make it digital, and so they upload a picture or a screenshot or a PDF version of that worksheet, or, you know, that paper activity. They can upload that here as a template, and then students can use all of the tools in Seesaw to complete it. So they could type, they could draw, they could add their voice. So this is where a lot of people use, you know, kind of digitize things that they've been doing paper pencil. Other things you might add in there as a template, you know, a graphic organizer can be amazing. Any kind of template or a PDF that you want them to complete. You could take a picture of something that you want them to annotate. The note tool in Seesaw is really just kind of a typing tool. So you could create a note that has some questions, and then they just respond within the note. If you have the premium version of Seesaw, you have multi-page. So you might have noticed on mine where I could add additional pages. So you could create a multi-page template. Again, that PDF, you could bring in your PDF and you can add up to 20 pages of the PDF if you have the paid version, the multi-page. The free version of Seesaw doesn't have multi-page, but one thing that's cool is you can't make your own. But let's say I make a multi-page activity and I share it with you, you can add it to your library and use the multi-page activity. You just can't create the multi-page activity. Before I go in and do the demo, I want to answer this quick question. Somebody asked the difference between, yep, I'm going to do that, Dee. I'm going to talk about the difference between kind of the premium and the paid version. So as I talk about things, I'll try to note, you know, what I can do in the premium and what I can't do in the free version. So just like that multi-page, there is an option. So you can buy a teacher license, and it's $120 a year. It's called Seesaw Plus. Or if you purchase it, it only works from the app. I'm not sure why, but if you purchase it from the app, it gives you an option of paying monthly. And I think it's like $12.99 a month. The Seesaw for Schools would be more for your whole building or grade levels. So on that one, you actually pay per student, and it's $5.50. I believe right now it might be, it's around $5.50 per student. So sometimes you want to maybe look at it, like let's say your whole grade level decides they want to use it, nobody else in the school but your grade level, depending on how many people that is. Sometimes it's still cheaper to buy Seesaw for Schools for 3 teachers than to buy Seesaw Plus for 3 teachers, if that makes sense. And then again, you have that district library there, which you won't have if you're just Seesaw Plus. You won't have that shared school or district library. So let me know if you have more questions about that. I want to kind of demo an activity, and I'm going to show you a little bit how I made this little classroom, pulling in some of those different elements. And then I'll answer questions about that. And then after that, I would like to give you a little bit of time to play in your own Seesaw teacher account, help you get that set up if you haven't done that yet. So I'm going to go back to Seesaw, and I'm going to go into a drawing. So let's say I'm making either my example or my template that I want students to use. So in order to make that Bitmoji classroom, I just had You have to come up with your clip art, and people have different ways of finding this. If you have a way, if you've made a virtual classroom and you have like a site or a resource that you use for finding your backgrounds and elements and that type of thing, please feel free to share that in the chat box so that everybody else can see that too. I'll share the resources that I use. They're listed out on a slide in just a minute. But something that I try to be a little bit careful about is, you know, copyright issues, making sure that I'm using fair use, graphics and images and that type of thing, particularly because I'm not just creating this to share with a class of kindergartners. I typically am creating it and then sharing out, you know, to the activity library or to other teachers on, you know, Twitter and Instagram and that kind of thing. So I'm really trying to be mindful of that. So I found just a pack of clip art that I could purchase for like a few dollars on Teachers Pay Teachers. That's sort of backgrounds. I know that there's tons of other sites. You can do a Google search and just search for like chair or whatever and find a bunch of different chairs. One tool that's helpful for creating these, if you haven't used it, there's something called remove.bg, and it'll be on a slide in a minute to remember that. But if you go to remove.bg, you can basically upload any picture and then it will remove the background. So if you have a chair and it has like something in the background or, you know, a white thing around the background, when I upload that to remove.bg, it will remove all that background. So then I just have those transparent elements that I can add into my classroom, which is kind of slick. So I'm just going to use the clip art that I had. To start adding images, I'm just clicking on that photo tool, and I'm just going to upload from my computer. So I had downloaded some of that clip art on here, so I'm just going to kind of grab some of those elements. So I'm going to grab a teacher background, and I don't know, I'm going to just say go ahead and add that one in there. I'm hoping it's okay. Good, it wasn't too slow. I can move this around and resize it right now however I want it to be. I'm going to maybe size it down a little bit just so I can see it better for this demo purpose. Once I get it sort of where I want it, those three little dots will let me lock that into place. So once I have something where I don't want to move it, I can lock that into place so it doesn't move. And then I'm just going to kind of keep doing that with other elements. Again, I'm using clip art. Oops, I don't want to take my picture. I'm using clip art. You could use wherever you're finding those images. Jamie, I'll put a link to those slides in here in just a moment. So let's see, I've got like a little window, so I could add in my window. Again, however you want to sort of style and make your classroom look. So I'm going to lock in the pieces that I don't want to move. I'm going to add in, I had these little like cubbies. Let me find those. Cubby, here we go. So let's say I want to kind of put in this cubby. So I have these little like shelves here. And again, that piece I want to lock into place. So I'm going to lock that guy into place. I can, again, continue. I'm not, for the sake of time, I'm not going to continue adding. I think you get the idea of how I can add those elements in there. Once I have the pieces where I want them, then I might start adding in my interactive pieces. So I've seen so many clever ideas here. Maybe I put in, you know, some books and make this into a library, and then when I click it, it takes me to a reading of that book. For this purpose, I'm going to make this kind of like a math shelf. So I could do a couple of things. I have some clip art here. I had a 10 frame clip art. So I'm going to bring in my little 10 frame and I'm going to size it down so that I could set it onto my shelf. So let's say I have my 10 frame sitting there, and then when my students click on it, I could actually do a couple of different things here. I could now add, Seesaw has all these shapes down here. I could add in counters. I could bring in some circles here and maybe resize them. If I was doing this, I probably wouldn't make this so teeny tiny. That might be a little tricky, but I could resize this. I could change the color of this. Once I have it how I want it, I could duplicate it by clicking those three dots, or just use my keyboard shortcuts and duplicate. And I could actually like lock the 10 frame and then have these available for students to move around as counters. So that's one thing that I could do to make this interactive. However, I'm really excited about those new features, and so I want this to link out to something. So one of my favorite sites to use is this free, it's the Math Learning Center, and they have free virtual manipulatives that are available as apps for free for your iPad or like Android device, or they just have web versions of these apps as well. So I'm going to link this. I'm going to say, open up this web app, and I'm going to copy this website, because what I want is for students to click on that 10 frame, and I want it to take them to that number frames manipulative. So I'm going to click those 3 dots, and where there's a link, I'm going to just paste that website. And then you'll see that now it has that little link beside it. Once I do that, I could again lock that into place, because I don't want them moving this around. I just want them to be able to click on that link and then go to that site. Now I can also link it without having an image here, so I don't have to link it to an image. So another site I like for math manipulatives is this toytheater.com. It has a bunch of free manipulatives. I'm just gonna scroll so you can see this. Maybe while I'm here, I'll pop these into the, I don't think I linked to these in the slides. So while I'm here, I'll just give you guys those links, and I'll grab this one too, just so you have them. So let's say I want them to use these little bear counters. I'm going to click on the bear counters. I'm going to copy that URL and go back to my Seesaw. And then I'm just going to link from here. So again, I'm not connecting it necessarily to anything. I'm just going to those 3 dots. I want to add a link. I'm going to paste that link and check mark, and it generates this little image for me. And so I'm going to size that down and put that on this other little shelf over here. And then again, I'm just gonna lock that guy into place, because I don't want them to be moved around. But now you can see that little link tool. This has made it live, so all of these things are clickable. Cool? Tell me that's not cool.
It's not cool.
My daughter just said it's not cool. You can always count on her. The embedded video, I think here is going to be awesome too. So let's say I'm going to try this. I want to give myself a little background first. So I'm going to add in a shape. I'm going to put a little rectangle up here and resize that. And maybe I want to change the color of it. And now I'm going to click on the camera and use that new video tool. So it's going to go ahead and open up that video record tool in Seesaw. I'm going to have 5 minutes to record. So when I'm inside of Seesaw, I can record for 5 minutes. So let's say now I'm explaining whatever it is. This could be, I'll just click record. Start recording. This could be, you know, the math lesson of the day. This could be an introduction, your morning meeting, whatever you want this to be. I'm going to say done. And now I've got this lovely video. If only we could choose this front shot right here. And I'm going to just kind of resize it. So that's why I had put that there first, just so I have sort of like a little background. You don't have to do that part, but now I kind of have like a little frame or background around, and then I could have my video. So again, my video could play right here from this page. So they could listen to my story, listen to my morning message, whatever it is, and then have access to the rest of the screen to, you know, click, go visit here, whatever you want them to do. Adding the actual Bitmoji. Yesterday my Bitmoji wasn't loading, so I'm just gonna try to see if it does. I like using the Bitmoji Chrome extension. So I've got it living up here. When I click on it, in theory, it should load my Bitmoji. It was doing this to me yesterday too, so I don't know if I need to re-log in or what, but it would load my Bitmoji here. I could search for whatever I want. A tip that I learned not too long ago is if you type in the word pose, and it only works in the Chrome extension, but if you type in the word pose, it will give you different like poses for your Bitmoji without having all the words and stuff around them. So then you could just grab the Bitmoji and drag it onto your Seesaw screen. And then your Bitmoji would kind of be living here. So if you want to add that Bitmoji to a virtual classroom, using the Chrome extension is my favorite place to do that. So I'm going to pretend I'm done. I'm just going to go like this. Candace just asked, where would this show up on Seesaw? It could be wherever you want it to be. So for my activity, I put it as an example right here because there's nothing that I necessarily want them to respond to on that particular classroom. It just merely is giving them information, just kind of the virtual classrooms that people have been making. It's really just a way of organizing links and that kind of thing. So I could put it as my example, and then maybe I want students to respond by, okay, take a screenshot of your number frame activity and add it to the template. Or if I was reading them a story, maybe they respond by, giving me a retell of the story. Some people use, again, like a morning message. Maybe the response is almost just like a check-in, like good morning, because you're just kind of trying to do a check-in for the day. You could also just post this right into the journal feed. If you don't want them to respond in any way, you could just post your classroom maybe like at the top of your journal feed so that they just click on it and have links. If you do that, we'll talk about folders a little bit. I would make a folder for your classroom so that they would stay sort of organized in that folder. I'm going to go back into my example really fast because I also want to show you, for those of you, okay, and let me say, I don't want to forget, these updates just came out yesterday. They are available both in the free and the premium versions. So I love that they added those updates to both. If you're on a free version, you get multiple links on a slide, just like I had more than one link. You get one video. Premium versions, you can add additional video. And then since you have access to the multi-page, so I'm going to add another page here, you can also draw and record across multiple pages. So what that means is, let's say I have, again, like my daughter's slideshow that she had uploaded. When she did it, she had to like basically record each page as a separate recording. Now I could click on this microphone, I could start recording, I could tell whatever I want to say on this page, I could click to the next page, and I could keep telling and recording. And then when I'm done, I say done. And it's going to create a whole new page that has my recording of me going through. So I can draw and record across multiple pages. That feature is only available on premium because you don't have multi-page on free. And then with the multi-page, another thing I can do, I'm loving this little picture of me, by the way. That's how much I love you guys. I'm not even deleting it. I'm just leaving it there. I can also link to the next page. So let's say, I don't know, I've heard a lot of people where they're having trouble, like, I want my students now to move on to page 2 or 3. How do I make sure they know how to do that? So I could put like a shape or something in here, or like a click here. And then when I click on this and I link, one of my options is I could actually link to another page. So then I could have them go to, page 3 or whatever. And when they click on that, it's just going to automatically take them to that other page in my slides. Cool, right? Someone asked about the icon shortcuts in the slides. Now I won't find them fast. On slide 22, it shows you the icon shortcuts. If I click on it, it's going to take you to a website, and I'm just going to copy and post that in here so that you guys can all find them. I would bookmark this page if it's something that you think you'll be utilizing these, because then it will update as they add new features. Like right now, the new tools, maybe they're in there. Anyway, as they add new things to it, then this would automatically be updated and you'd see those icon shortcuts. Okay, let's get back where we were. These were the resources that I used to create my Bitmoji. The clip art I got was, again, from Teachers Pay Teachers, Creating for the Classroom. I just got her classroom backgrounds pack. You can also use, again, like when you're talking copyright, fair use, that kind of thing, a couple of sites I love Flat Icon. You can find some really cute clip art on Flat Icon that's fair use. Same with Unsplash for images. So if I'm looking for like a cute picture of kids, I go to Unsplash. I know that those are copyright-free images that I can use. You know, another thing is just using your own. So I try to use my own images as much as I can, pictures that I've taken in classrooms and that sort of thing. I mentioned remove.bg and the Bitmoji Chrome extension. Those are linked here. Some other resources, there's a Facebook group called Bitmoji Craze for Educators. That's awesome. If you haven't joined it and you like using Bitmoji, they have tons of ideas for these virtual classrooms and lots of other really clever, creative things you can do with your Bitmoji. And then a couple of sort of tutorials and resources here for those clickable activities and then creating virtual classrooms. So, sorry, that ran a little long, so I'm probably not going to give you as much time to explore as I had intended, but I'd really like to take a little chunk of time here, maybe like 30 minutes. I am going to keep the Zoom on. I'm going to sit here as much as I can, but I'm probably going to get up and stretch my legs a little bit too. But if you have questions, I'm going to be here still answering your questions, but I'd love for you to be able to get up, walk around, take a break, have a snack, have some coffee, and then hopefully log into your teacher account and explore a little bit with activities, whether you need some time to search the activity library because you haven't done that before, or if you want to get in and just kind of mess around with creating an activity and using those new tools. I'm going to give you, okay, I'm going to give you until 10:20, so about 30 minutes. So we'll officially join back at 10:20. But again, you know, I'll be here to answer questions for you as you work. Most of you, I think, have Seesaw accounts. If you don't, the website is along the bottom here. It's just app.seesaw.me. If you don't have an account, you can sign up for a free teacher account. Just, you know, put in your email address or connect it to your Google account, and then you can set up, it's going to ask you to create a class. You can create just kind of a practice class. In fact, that's what this one is, the one I've been using, so that I'm not using you know, like a regular class or whatever. I'm just using a practice class that I've created here just to kind of play around with. When I go back to the class, I just want to just show you real quickly how easy it is to archive those classes. So let's say you kind of create a practice class and then you want to get rid of it. You can click on that wrench up in that right hand corner and scroll all the way to the bottom, and then you can archive the class. So if you want to make a class that you just kind of use for playing around in, you can archive it easily. One thing I'll note is that the activities you create aren't connected to a class, they're connected to your account. So that's a question I get a lot. Let's say, you know, you work at a school and now you're moving and you're not going to have the same, you know, classes and that kind of thing. It doesn't matter as long as you still are logging into your account, you're going to have access to all of your activities. So again, you can make a practice class, make activities, and then get rid of that class, and you'll still have the activities you made in your library available to you. So again, I'm going to give you about 30 minutes just to kind of play around if you want to create your own activity or if you want to just search that activity library, and then we'll meet back here at 10:20. Questions about what you're supposed to do, or any questions? Again, while I'm just kind of hanging out here, please either unmute and let me know or put it in the chat box and I'll be looking through those. All right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and reshare my screen. Welcome back. I hope that you actually took a little break, got up and walked around a little bit, and had a little bit of time to explore. So I'd love to hear any comments that came up as you were exploring, questions or roadblocks, or just any like discoveries or ahas or things that you notice. So go ahead and unmute if you want to share, or again, just pop something into the chat box if you'd like.
Let's see. Hi, Tracy. I was just trying to type this and I couldn't see my whole box, so I'm just going to say it. So I'm totally new, so I was looking in trying out some of the activities, and you can do it as a test student so that you see what your kids are seeing. And the first time it prompted me to do that, but the second time I went into an activity, I couldn't figure out how to get the like the test student view again. Do you know how to streamline that?
Great question. Let's see. That's funny. Look at mine did the same thing. So when I do, I know. Okay, I think I know what happened. Is once you complete an activity, like were you trying to do the same activity or a different one?
A different one.
Oh, well, maybe I don't know. Once you complete an activity, it'll show it as complete. And so then you don't actually see, you wouldn't see the activity again and be able to do it. But so what she is saying is she was able to, and this is actually something you have to make sure you have on in your settings. So I have this sample student turned on, and it's a very handy thing to be able to, once you do an activity or create one, to be able to try it as a student. So now when I go to add response, like I've assigned it to a class and it's in my feed, I can say add response, and I should be able to select sample student from this list, and then I can complete this activity as though I were doing it as a student. I'm not certain why you wouldn't have the option on every activity. You should, if you have it enabled, you should have it. The only thing that might have happened, and I don't know, like my top activity here, it's not assigned to all. So like here, this one says assigned to all students. This one's only assigned to 2 students. And so I must not have assigned it to that sample student. Otherwise, if you have it enabled, that should be an option for you to be able to post to.
Okay, maybe I didn't, maybe
Good
I just didn't
question.
even assign that. I'm not sure. So I'll try it again.
Hey, Tracy.
Yeah.
Does this automatically adjust to different screens? So like if I'm doing it on my computer, my MacBook, and then my kids are using it on a Chromebook, is it going to adjust, or there's going to be things kind of like outside of the margins? Does that make sense?
Yes, it shouldn't be outside in the margins sometimes. And I haven't noticed a difference from a Chromebook to a computer. It would be worth trying, like grab a Chromebook and log in as a student and just see what they see. From a computer to an iPad, I can still see everything, but I've noticed that sometimes, like if I'm trying to point to something, like the arrow isn't pointing exactly where I want it. So it doesn't disappear off the screen, but sometimes it's not exactly where I had envisioned it when I was on the computer. So it does kind of resize it a little bit. But yeah, I would definitely, whatever your students are using, if you have access to that device, it would be really helpful to log in as a student and just kind of see exactly what it's going to look like for them. Good question. Somebody else put up in here, you know, what's great about this is being able to, you know, create something and not have to reinvent the wheel. So whether I make it and now I just have it, right? Like maybe I did, somebody said, you know, those Bitmoji classrooms look like they could take a lot of time. Yes, depending on how much time you want to invest in them, they really could. Like some people's Bitmoji classrooms are very detailed and they take a lot of time. But once it's created, you have it, right? You can use it again and again. And same for if I make something something and put it into the library. How nice to be able to share with others, and again, not have to reinvent the wheel. When we started distance learning, so many teachers were trying to grab Wonders things and make them into Seesaw activities. So I was so grateful when our literacy coaches stepped in and started creating those and pushing those to the library so that we could focus our time on other things, rather than everybody, making their own Wonders Unit 1 activity or whatever. So I thought that was great. Yeah, Dee, I will do that. Remind me. Okay, whoops, I clicked on something I didn't mean to click on. So let's just look real quickly at the sharing and organizing pieces here. Once you have an activity created, you can click the 3 dots underneath the activity to share that activity with others. The options that you should see are you can email this to teachers. So when you click on that, other teachers connected to your school should come up. And then you could just select their names and send that activity right to them. You can also, again, if you're connected to Seesaw for Schools, you could share that to the school library. So when I click on that, from my activity, I just pick my grade level and my subject and say share, and then it's already there. It's discoverable by anyone connected to our Seesaw for Schools. This is the method I use the most. It's just get activity link. So it just sends me a copy, or it lets me copy that link, and then I could share it however I'd like. I can email it to teachers. I often share on Twitter. When Darby was working on one, and that's how she was able to share with me. So you'll see kind of what I see, and hers is still a work in progress. But she was able to get that activity link. This is what it looks like to me. If this is something I'd like to use, I could click save activity, and it's going to save it right into my library, and then I could either assign it or modify it to use it with my own students. So Darby was asking me a question. I'm just going to clarify. Is what you want to know is, like, could you link each of these backpacks to something? Is that what you're wanting to do?
Yeah, so what I did is in the pink backpack, I found a back to school book, and it was about school rules. So ideally what I want to do is I, sent the book to the back, so they have to click the backpack. That'll take them to the YouTube read aloud. And then I would like to have them come up with school rules. Now that you've heard this story, what do you think good school rules would be, or classroom rules? So is there a way you can do that? Because after you and we were talking, I was thinking about it. And if you go over to the 3 dots there on the left side, can you link again to like page 2? And then that will directly take them to page 2?
Yep, so this is a good example. So this is one image. So she's trying to link, I think if I understand, she's trying to link each backpack, but it's just one image. So when you did this link here, it's not really linked just to the pink backpack. It's linked to this whole image. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. So I would have to do like backpacks individually for each different. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, or you could do, so that's great, because I think this is probably something a lot of people would run into, right? When I just do one image, I can just link to one. So if you wanted each one separate, you would maybe have to find a separate, like 6 separate backpack clip art or whatever. Or you could, maybe add in some kind of shape, whether you try to make it look like part of the backpack, or if you just put something like right above each one of them, then you could link on the shape itself, and then that could link to another page. So you could kind of, add a shape in there or something. Like I try to make that on top of my backpack, and they click there. So you could kind of do some things like that. No, that was a great example. Thanks for sharing that. If you made anything that you feel comfortable sharing, I put a Padlet together, and if you didn't get anything made and you're not ready to share yet, that's totally fine. But if you do have something created, you can click on the link and it'll take you to this Padlet. And you should be able to, just like we just did, looked at, go to that three dots, share, and then choose get activity link. And then in the Padlet, you could click here and you could write what the title of it is, and then where the link is, you could just paste that link, and then it would share those activities that we created. So if you found something you thought was really great that you want to share with others, you can get the activity link to share, or if you made something and want to put it here, please feel free to do that, just so that we all have access to this Padlet and we can kind of learn from one another. And I can grab while I'm here, I'll just go ahead and drop this into the chat box too, if it's easier to grab it that way. So if you have something to share, please feel free to share it in that Padlet. We touched on this really briefly, but there are folders in Seesaw that can help you manage some of the content. One of the things that happens a lot that overwhelms people is when you go into your journal feed, there's really no way of organizing it. It's kind of like the stream in Google Classroom where it's just a lot of stuff. So anytime something is posted to the journal, it just shows up in this big long journal feed. So sometimes it can be overwhelming if I'm trying to find if a student has completed something, or if I'm trying to find a previous post. I know what I'm looking for, but it's hard to find it. So one way I like organizing it is by creating folders. And I almost wish the folders were called labels, because really that's kind of what they are to me. So when I click on the wrench, I can scroll down to where it says folders and manage folders. And then you can create folders for whatever makes sense to you. I could have a, what did we talk about? If I was making a bunch of Bitmoji classrooms, I'm going to post these to the journal. I could make a Bitmoji classroom folder, and it would make it easy to find. If you're using this for distance learning, a lot of people were posting, I don't know why that's not loading. A lot of people were posting, I'm going to try to shut a few of my tabs down. Wondering if maybe that's my problem. Let's go through and do that. They were posting like a morning meeting or like a weekly agenda, things like that. And so you could make a folder called agendas or weekly schedules, things like that. And it's going to make that a little bit easier for you to be able to go back and find those items. So when you create a folder, and now I'm completely lost. I'll try to refresh again. When you create a folder, you can then tag different posts into the folders. So again, let's see if this reloads for us. I'm going to kind of back out of there. You might have to imagine, if you will, or click around in your own class. But underneath each post, you'll see a little folder icon. You could tap on that and you could then place it into whatever folder makes sense. And then from the journal screen, you'll see a little folder icon kind of living, if you're either on your name or the class journal, you'll see a little folder icon living on the side. You can click on that folder and then you could sort. So let's say I'm looking for all of my weekly schedules. I could click on weekly schedule and then I could easily view it. As a parent, I can search by folder as well. So as a parent, an example from distance learning is Sloan's teacher did a read aloud, like every day she would just get on and read a chapter of a book. Well, if we didn't get to listen to that one chapter and then Sloan had posted a bunch of stuff, now her read aloud was kind of at the bottom of the journal feed and we'd have to scroll and look for it. But she tagged it into a read aloud folder. So instead I could click on the folder icon, find that read aloud folder and go right to what I was looking for. So it just makes it a little bit easier to manage some of the items that are being posted into the journal. And again, I found that by clicking on the wrench. So I went to my class settings and I could manage folders from there. Here's what it would look like if my screen actually loaded. So here's kind of what it looks like, some of the folders that I created and how you could create your own folder. It's also really nice because when you go to assign an activity, you can actually tag an activity into a folder. So let's say I created an activity and it was a math activity and I want to organize all of that to easily find it. Or if you're a specialist or an interventionist and you're maybe a co-teacher on a class, using folders are a really great way to sort of tag what is your content versus what's the teacher's content. So maybe I'm a PE teacher and I'm going to post a video and then ask students to kind of respond with a video back. I'm going to tag that into a PE folder so that when I go back through to look at them, I can just find them in the folder. So when I tag the activity into the folder, what that means is every student response is going to be automatically in that folder. So I'm not going to have to go through the journal feed, find all of them, and then individually put them into the folder. It will just go there automatically once they respond. So that's really handy. From the assign activity screen that you see, you can also notice this is where you could edit your students. Again, you could tag different folders and then skills, which I'll talk about in just a second. And so that can be a really handy tool. Somebody had asked earlier, if by default it goes to all my students, but I could go in and I could differentiate. I could send it to just certain students, send a different activity to a different group. If I'm an interventionist, maybe I'm only working with 3 students in this class, so I could go in and edit. So I'm just sharing with the 3 students that I work with. I also love that I can assign to more than one class at a time. Again, this is huge if you're a specialist or a co-teacher and you're a co-teacher on many classes. You could have your activity and then you could choose, I want to send it to all 3 kindergarten classes. So you don't have to go in and do that one at a time. You could choose them all at once and push out that activity all at once. And then that little schedule button at the bottom, that's just if you're using the premium version, but you can actually schedule your activities to show up on a certain day and time. The skills is another premium feature, and I don't have that super highlighted here, but I think I have a link. I'm going to go through my slides real fast. I thought I had a link. If not, I'll find one. There is that private folder that we chatted about, again, only in the premium version, but that can be a space for saving things that you don't want other kids to see, or even parents can't even see that. This is what some of the special education teachers are doing because they don't want anything that the students are doing, maybe as part of an intervention group or a special services group. They don't want it posted to the class feed, but it's easier for them to be a co-teacher than make their own class. Every time you assign an activity, you could just tag it to go right into the private folder. Parents aren't going to be able to see any of the work that the students are doing, so that's something to think about, but it would keep it so that it's private only to the teacher to be able to view it. Another little feature in the, I think I might have gone past that one too fast, sorry. I've got like a Zoom screen down here, like a toolbar. I can't figure out where I want it, but it's covering up the words on those slides. I did put a link down there about using folders. There's a little help article and video, and Seesaw also, I'll give you a link at the end, but they've got a ton of little mini trainings that they're creating, and there is one all about folders, and there's also going to be one all about co-teachers, which I think will be awesome for like specialists, interventionists, that kind of thing. And again, I'll show you where you'll be able to find that information near the end of this presentation, but that's a space you can go to find more about using folders if you have questions. As far as the activity library goes, there is a way to organize your own activities in your library. There's not a way, let's see if this class ever loaded. There's not a way to organize them. Here's what people ask all the time. When I go to my class and I've assigned a bunch of activities, I have this big long feed, right? There's not a good way of organizing this. I really wish there was, and I'll be surprised if this isn't an update sometime. One thing I would recommend is is, like, especially with distance learning, maybe you are pushing out only a certain number of activities a week. And then at the end of the week, you go through and you archive them because maybe, let's be honest, if the student hasn't done them in the week, are they going to go back and do them? You could always reassign them if you need to. But I think it will help getting into that routine and keeping this cleaned up a little bit. Underneath, so this is an activity that I've assigned. I can click those 3 dots. If none of my students have responded yet, so see how nobody's responded, I can delete this right out of here. It doesn't delete the activity. It's still going to be in my library, but it deletes it off of this feed. So my students, when they log in, aren't going to see it. I'm not going to see it in this feed. If students have responded, it gives me an option not to delete it, but to archive it. So what that means is it's going to take it off of this feed, but it's going to keep any responses still in the journal. So I'm not losing student responses. It's just going to kind of move it off of this feed. I can find any activities I've archived over here where it says archived activities. So here's where I mean, maybe I've got 3 students who didn't do any of this week's work. I'm going to go through and archive all of them because I want them off the feed. But let's say, you know, Susan's mom then texts me and says she didn't have a chance to do any of those. I could come into my archives, I could edit the activity, and then I could reassign. When it says assign to down here, I could reassign and just pick the student who needs to do it and send it now just to that student. But I really think getting in the habit of archiving or deleting those things out of your feed is going to be really helpful. That was maybe one of the biggest things that I heard, is that this gets super overwhelming. So sorry, I got myself off track. So when I say organize activities, I'm not talking about this feed. I'm talking about your activity library. So when you look at my library, if I scroll to the bottom, I have something called collections. And these are just basically ways of organizing any of the activities from my library. So I went through and made collections for, it's basically like how you would save files on your computer, kind of like beginning of the year. I have some for English language arts, maybe end of the year. So I've basically just made collections so that it makes my activities easier to find. You'll see I have 436 activities. Unless I remember exactly what I called something, it's really hard for me to go back and find, you know, I want that, you know, chicka chicka boom boom activity I did last fall. This makes it a lot easier for me to find it. The premium version, our Seesaw for Schools, you can have up to 500 collections. Free users, this is one thing that's a bummer. You only have 2 collections, so it's not really all that helpful to put things into 2 collections. There is a link down here at the bottom that will tell you a little bit more about using those collections. When you archive, you don't lose. So that's why I archive it and don't delete it. So when I look at that activity, like here, Sloan had responded to this activity, right? That's why when I archive it, I'm not going to delete it out of there, because when I archive it, when I go back to the journal, Sloan's response will still be living in my journal. It's just going to take this. So I'm going to go ahead and archive it. I'm going to archive that so that now it's not sitting in this feed, because again, #1 complaint I hear from families and students is this feed getting out of control. But when I go back to my journal, if I click on Sloan's name, that response that she had put in there is still living here in her journal. Nope, and the skills data would remain with it as well. So it's really just removing it from the activity feed. A couple of questions about skills. That's again a paid feature. So when I click on skills, This is a space where I could put in, you know, my proficiency scales, standards that I'm working on. Billing Seesaw for Schools, I'm able to bulk upload all of our proficiency scales. So you will just automatically have all of the proficiency scales loaded in here. Other districts or Seesaw Plus, you would have to add your own skills in here, but you can put in any standards. And then this allows you to kind of tag and score those. And you saw from the assignment page where I could tag folders, I could also tag skills. So rather than have to go through one at a time, like here, I could click on here, that little graduation hat, and then I could tag whatever standard this would belong to. You can see I have some amazing standards in here. So let's say it's a thinking hats is my standard. I could tag it. If I do that from the activity, I don't have to manually go through every post and do that. I can actually just automatically, every response will be tagged with a skill. Then I would open this up and I could use the stars to score it. So I could give this a 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on what I think. I'm going to check mark that, and then I'm going to go back to my skills view over here. Who did I tag that? Oh, that might not work because it was tagged as me. Let's try that again, because I want you to see what you see. When something is actually tagged, I'm going to put Leah's name on there just so it has a student tagged in it. Now, when I go to my student view, you'll notice that Leah has, under that thinking hats skill, she has one activity tagged, that one that I just did, and it's color coded because I had scored that with a 4, and then I can look at it. This, I think, is really powerful because, again, it's not, I know I always had like a spreadsheet or a checklist in my classroom, right? Where I had all the standards and I could go through, I had my kids' names, I could do like a little check mark or whatever, which was great. But this is so powerful because when I click on these pieces of work, I'm not just looking at a number or a check mark on a sheet. I can actually now come in here and see this documentation. I can see the student actually demonstrating an understanding of that skill. So this piece, I think, it has to become a part of your routine. I've seen some teachers use it really well. I've seen some teachers who have it who really don't use it because it has to just become a part of your routine to remember to come in here and check it and score it. But once you make it a part of your routine, I really think this can be an amazingly helpful tool. But yes, DC, to answer your question, even if I archived something, that post would still be there, and any score, it would still remain here in my skills view and everything as well. Okay, we already kind of talked about if you want to share the activity you created, how to share it by either emailing it or, you know, you can put it in the school library, put it on that Padlet. So again, if you did create something that you'd like to share, please take the time to share. One thing I noticed in our activity library is that sometimes people don't think what they made was like good enough to share or whatever. I want to assure you that anything you create is someone, you know, if it's helpful for you and your students, somebody else will find it helpful for them and their students. So please don't feel shy about sharing your creations. Darby, your question, when you score the activities, it automatically populate it into the last screen. I think what you mean by that question is it's not, I'm trying to think of the right word, a summative, like this wouldn't be comprehensive. So that green color, when I'm looking at the color code, is whatever the last score was. So it's not cumulative. That's the word that I want. It's not going to be cumulative. So if I have 10 things here and 9 of them were yellow and the last one is green, it's going to show green right here. So that is something good to know. Sometimes I like that because here in Billings, we're standards based, and so we really are working toward mastery. But at the same time, it would be good practice for you to not just, take this at its worth. Like, I would actually click and scroll through. And if you see that everything else is red and then they just happen to get a green here, then you would obviously adjust your scoring or your grading to go along with that. This last piece that I'll try to get through kind of quickly, so we have a little bit of time for questions, is just this feedback and reflection piece. It's really important, I think, to provide opportunities for students to receive feedback and then reflect on their work. I think using a digital portfolio like Seesaw is a great way to do that because, again, it's not a folder of papers or things shoved in a backpack. It's relatively easy for them to find work they've done previously and then have that opportunity to relook at it, maybe make some edits, check it again, read your feedback, and make revisions. So there's some different ways that you can give feedback to students. Premium version only, you have this send back draft feature. So from my journal, and I guess I should say, for those of you not familiar with Seesaw, by default, all student responses will require a teacher to view them and approve them before they're actually posted. And that I clicked on my wrench to get into my settings, which is, the settings are just loading super slow today. So anyway, in your wrench in the settings is where you can adjust that, but I would recommend keeping it so that you would have to moderate all of those posts. So what that means is when a post comes through, you get this little red line on the bottom of your screen that says you have post to approve. When I click on it, it's going to show me the posts that are ready for me to view and approve. And I usually have given the kids pretty explicit instructions on what I'm expecting. And so I'm only going to approve it if they've actually done what I asked them to do. You can imagine, that some of these tools they could use and just like scribble all over the page, or they turn on the microphone and just start like jibber jabbering. I think it's really important to be explicit with what you want them to do, whether that's through the activities or you kind of verbally saying what the expectations are. And then I only approve it if it's what I ask them to do. And here's an example. I go into kindergarten, I say, I want you to draw a picture and write your name, and that's it. And you're doing one picture. So if they now submit their picture and then submit 7 more, I'm not approving all of those pictures because I asked them to do one picture. And so I'm going to go tell them, I'm deleting all the rest of these. That's not what I asked you to do. If they draw their picture and didn't add the detail I asked them to add, I'm going to ask them to redo it. If they didn't put their name on there because I asked them to, I'm going to ask them to redo it. If they added the microphone and they're just being silly on it, I'm going to say they have to delete that. So again, even though they're just playing and exploring at first, and I try to be a little bit more, loose with that, I guess, because I want them to play and explore. I also find that if you don't hold them to expectations, that can get out of control pretty quickly. Like if I'm approving just 10 scribbles on a screen, they're going to think that that's okay to do all the time. So give them expectations and hold them to those expectations. If you hit delete, it really is gone. So I only do that on, again, it's literally just them goofing around, being silly, and I'm just deleting it. If they posted something inappropriate, I don't usually delete it because I usually want to keep it for some kind of documentation. So again, if you have the premium version, you could click that little folder. Those things are just not wanting to load for me today, but I could click that little folder and put it into the private folder like we had talked about, so that again, it's not going away, but it's not going to be visible by any of the students. So I could put that into the private folder. Even if I approve it, if I put it in the private folder, nobody else can see it. If you don't have the premium version and you want to save it, sometimes I do like a screenshot. You can also click these 3 dots and I could save this item. So I could download it to my computer and put it like in a Google Drive folder or something, and then delete it. And again, I'm talking about maybe some inappropriate things that I don't want posted, but I want to keep for documentation. If it's good to go, I'm just going to hit approve. If there are some things that I want them to fix on here, I want to give them some feedback, I could do this a couple of different ways. Because I have the premium version, I could send this back to them. So maybe I write in the comments down here, I could tell her what I need her to fix. And then I could post my comment so that she would get my feedback. And then I could send this back, and it would send it back to her as a draft. It would have like a little orange line on top of it, so she'd know that there was something there she needed to fix. You'll notice when I give a comment, a few people mentioned this at the beginning, you can also give an audio comment. So if you have pre-readers and they're not going to be able to read your amazing feedback, you could do that using the microphone as well. If you don't have the send back tool, you could still give them the feedback down here. And then you'd need some kind of system of sort of drawing it to their attention that they have something to review. A couple of ways you could do this. Oh, somebody says I'm going in and out. Do you hear me okay? I definitely seem to be having internet trouble because something's not loading great. Okay, good. A couple of ways that you could kind of alert them, I guess, that they have something to look at. A teacher here in Billings came up with the idea of making a couple of folders, and one of them is like a work in progress folder, or a maybe incomplete work, or whatever you want to call it, work that you need to fix, something like that. You could tag it into that folder and then teach your kids to check that folder to see if there's anything that they need to go back and fix. Another tool you could use is teaching them to use this inbox right here. Part of the inbox is you get a notification, and so if you have put a comment on their work, that will show up in their notifications. So you could teach them to look at this inbox thing right here, and if they have like a little number for a notification, they could come here and see that you've given them some feedback on some work that they need to fix. So those are a couple of ways that you could give feedback and kind of get it back to the student in order to edit. You can also edit the work itself and put the feedback right on the work. So what I mean by that is when I go to my post, underneath this particular post where I'd clicked those 3 dots and I had that menu, one of my options is going to be to edit the work. That's going to let me get right into the student's work. I could now use, you know, a microphone. I could put like a voice caption on it and tell them what I need them to fix. I could use a pen tool and correct it just like I would on pencil and paper. And then again, I would save that. So here we are. I would click those 3 dots, edit the item, and then I can get into this item and again add those elements on here. But then I would still need to use some of those tools, either send back or putting it into that like incomplete work folder, whatever makes sense to you in order to kind of alert the students that they have something to go in and revise. Along the lines of this, some people have been using digital stickers. So I put that here too. Again, you could use the microphone to record like a little comment, or you could use these digital stickers. And there's a link where I take you to a tutorial on how I make those digital stickers and put them into Seesaw. But basically, some people like using their Bitmoji. So if you have those like, you know, good job or star Bitmojis or whatever, you're going to add them just as an image. So I would come here and upload. So whether you've created a cute little sticker or you're using your Bitmoji or whatever that is, you could just upload that and then put a sticker right here onto their work and then check mark it. For audio feedback, I would use this caption tool down here at the bottom. And then again, you could add a voice caption. I wouldn't do it using this microphone because if you remember from earlier, this microphone is going to make it into a video. So if I record right here and tell her what I need her to do to fix this, and then I send it back, she's not going to be able to edit anything on that page because I've turned it into a video. So if I'm inside her work and I want to do an audio feedback, I'm going to do it with the voice caption down here. And if this loads, it doesn't take too terribly long, you can see an example of what I mean by that digital sticker kind of living. Let's see, it put me back here. Nope, I think it's over here. Sorry. One of the digital stickers that I used is in one of these posts kind of waiting to be approved. And so again, it just kind of sticks on there. It would be a quick and easy way to give feedback if you had some stickers on hand rather than, you know, doing audio or text or whatever. You could do just like a quick sticker on there. I'll just kind of let that load for a second. This reflection piece, I'm not going to pause and have you read this right now, but I would definitely recommend when you have a second clicking into this article from Edutopia and giving that a read. It is a really great article that talks about the importance of giving our students time to reflect on their work. And I teach a course for the OPI Learning Hub about digital portfolios, and we always read this article. And it's always one of my favorite discussions because so many of us as teachers recognize that giving students time to reflect is so important and valuable, but it's such a hard thing for us to remember to build into our routines. And so I think that article really will get you thinking about ways that you could build that into you know, your weekly, your daily routines in your classroom. And then I put a little note at the bottom. There is a Chrome extension for Seesaw called Reflect in Seesaw. And so if your students are primarily using Chromebooks, this can be a wonderful tool. When I click on it, let's see if it works. My extensions aren't working great. I click on it and it's asking me if I want to capture the whole visible screen or just a certain area. So I'm going to say I want a certain area. I'm going to drag. Now it's like clicking. It's clicking through my slides. I'm going to drag just to select. I'm wondering if it's not working great because I'm in the Zoom or something. But basically the idea is I would get like a screenshot of what I wanted. So maybe I'm on an article or something that I want my students to annotate. They could do a screenshot of that article. It's going to automatically load it right into their Seesaw, and then they can use the tools on top of it to annotate, use the microphone, that kind of thing. So just kind of a quick, easy way to grab some learning and then add it into Seesaw for those reflection pieces. Support. So I told you I'd give you some links to get kind of some help and support. Now that thing is not going to go away. It's going to make me crazy. There are tons of resources available. One of the slides I put in here are just some student examples. So these are all examples. If you click them, it goes to the Seesaw post so you can see that post a little better. Things that I've done in classrooms with students. That QR code at the bottom, if you scan it, will take you to a Seesaw class that you could just join as a student just to view different student examples that I've posted in there. So if that's something you're interested in, you can do that. Web.seesaw.me, which we talked about earlier, that's kind of a hub for a ton of Seesaw resources. So if you go there, you'll be able to kind of see there's a banner at the top where you could find resources specific to remote learning. And then there's also a training page. And they're working on some new trainings that will be available near the end of this month that really will break down, you know, Seesaw basics and then kind of going into the next steps. And then there's many trainings that I had mentioned. You know, if you need to know more about the new tools, there will be one about that, one about co-teachers. There'll be one specific to that. There are things live there right now, so you could certainly go there right now and get started, but they are going to be updating those near the end of the month. So tons of things available there. The Help Center is great. If you go help.seesaw.me, type in whatever you have questions about, and it will take you to a lot of support articles. I started a flip grid and added a ton of stuff to it over the past few months with distance learning. I tried to keep the videos pretty short so you could go there, and if you're looking for, you know, I want to upload a PDF into my activity, you can find a quick video tutorial that will show you how to do that. And then the Seesaw activity library, again, I think is such a huge resource, whether you're looking for stuff that you can just grab and assign, or if you just want to see examples. I think it's so nice to see what other people are making and creating and doing, and then you kind of start sparking ideas of things that you could do with your own content. So lots of supports there. Okay, I tried to finish with a good little chunk of time here so that I can answer any questions that you might still have. Again, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask, or you can pop them into the chat box.
Oh, sorry.
Go. All right, thank you. So this is a question from someone who has never used this. So once you assign it, what does it look like on the kids' end? Like, how do they get to the assignments? Is there a link, like they get on their computers and they go to Seesaw, or you could post the link in, like we use Teams, could you just post the link in Teams and they would access it that way?
No, this is a huge discussion right now in the Facebook groups, because I think a lot of schools are asking, like you're using Teams, or we're using Google Classroom, or we're using Canvas or whatever, right? So they're using an LMS, and then they want students to also use Seesaw. So that question has come up a lot. So you can't just link, like I can't grab a link to an activity that they would click on in Teams and go right to the activity. What you would link to is probably Seesaw. So app.seesaw.me, they would go there and they would have to log into their account. So I'm going to try to real fast log into this one as an account so you can kind of see, or as a student, so you can kind of see, again, my Zoom toolbar, go away. So I'm going to click, here's how I would get my students connected. I can connect them with either by email or a QR code. Oh my goodness, every time I click, I don't know what's going on. Here's what I'm thinking. This is my theory. I think everybody is so excited about the new tools that like everybody in the world is on Seesaw right now or something playing around. But I'm having a lot of trouble when I'm just trying to load, like for some reason, like menus and things like that. I'm really struggling. So I'm going to see if that loads for me so I could log in as a student. But honestly, the student screen looks really similar to what I'm looking at as a teacher. They would not see this thing that says skills right here. I have a blog going on mine. That's a whole other thing. They don't see that. Okay, let's see if I can get here. I'm just going to go ahead and log in with this text code right here. So let me drag this screen back up. I'm just going to put in that text code and log in now as a student. I'm going to click my name, so I have it set up one-to-one, so they would choose their name and then log in as themselves. So now here's what I see as a student when I come here. So here's my journal. I can search the journal feed. Right now I can see all of my classmates' posts because that's how I have it set up. The activities feed, it looks just like it does for you as a teacher, except they don't have those little, you know, 3 dots where they can delete and archive and all that kind of stuff. They would just be able to add a response. And then, as I mentioned, they do still have that inbox. And so they can look here and they could see that they have notifications. And so they could see if somebody has liked or commented on any of their posts. So what I see a lot of people doing, again, in like, let's say Google Classroom, they would maybe just link to Seesaw. So app.seesaw.me, the student goes to their Seesaw account. Some teachers want them to know which particular activity to go to. So maybe they would do like a screenshot right here of the unicorn activity. And then that would be posted in Teams or in Google Classroom. So they would know, log into your Seesaw account and complete the unicorn activity in Seesaw. So it's a little bit more, it works. You could definitely direct them to Seesaw from Teams or Classroom or Canvas, but I can't link where they would just click a link and go right to this activity. As I said, that is coming up a ton from teachers, especially for distance learning. So I'll be really shocked if that's not something that's added. What teachers are tending to do, so I'm back in my teacher view, they click those 3 dots, and where it says get activity link, they're thinking they can get this link and it's going to be for the students. This is that same share link that we looked at before. So what it's doing when I say get activity link, and I'm going to copy it, this is just like a teacher view of the activity, just like you had seen before, where I want to share this with my colleague. It's going to open up like this, and there's nothing that the student can do. So that's what I'm seeing a lot of teachers doing, and that's not working. So does that answer your question?
Yes, they would. So like if you have Clever, you could put Seesaw in your Clever account, I guess, and just tell kids, you know, get onto Seesaw and then find this activity. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Our Seesaw for Schools here in Billings, we've been using Clever, and we've rostered all of our Seesaw for Schools through Clever, and so it's automatically in. So if you're BPS and you're using Seesaw for Schools, they'll go to Clever and they'll automatically see that icon. If you're using free Seesaw or you're not connected to Seesaw for Schools, you could still do this through Clever. Just add it as like a link on your teacher page. And same kind of thing, like Clever can just sort of now be that hub, you know, for parents and students where go here, click on Seesaw, and then do this activity.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? That means we were so thorough. That was a ton of information. You guys hung in there. Again, I know Solange has mentioned it, but the link to these slides is in that Moodle course. And then she kind of talked to you too about in the Moodle course how to do the evaluation and all that kind of stuff. But those resources are linked in the Moodle course. My contact information, so of course you're welcome to reach out, email, Twitter at any time. I'm happy to help answer questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let's see. And then try to figure out how to, now how do I make you the host again?
In the participants,
Okay.
and like in the participants, select more.
By you. Okay, now I have to find you. There you are. More and make host.
Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Got it.
Well, that's great. Yeah, so I think we can pause the recording if there are no more questions.